My sister took over my bakery, yet she destroyed everything I built. Go ahead. Let her have it, I told my parents when they handed my sister control of the cafe I had built from the ground up. She's the woman in the family. She must know better, I added, forcing a smile. My sister, Emma, smirked as she plucked the keys from my hand. 6 months later, they called me in tears. The business was bankrupt. What they didn't know was that I had been preparing for this moment. I was elbow-deep in dough when my father walked into the kitchen, his expression heavy with something I had come to dread. The look that meant he and Mom had been discussing my future again. Daniel, he started, rubbing his hands nervously against his apron. Your mother and I have been thinking. I kept kneading, letting the motion steady me. Morning sunlight streamed through the windows of Flower and Hearth Cafe, catching on the brass fixtures I had carefully chosen when I renovated the space. Every detail bore my fingerprint, from the reclaimed wood shelves lined with specialty ingredients to the curated menu featuring handcrafted pastries and slow-fermented breads. Let me guess, I said, keeping my voice as steady as possible. This is about Emma taking over. His face lit up, as if relieved he didn't have to break the news himself. Yes, you know how she's been struggling since she lost her job at the consulting firm. Your mother thinks this would be perfect for her. She has a finance degree, after all. I let out a dry laugh. Dad, Emma doesn't know the first thing about running a bakery. She's never worked in food service. She doesn't even cook her own meals. But she understands business, he insisted. Numbers management. All the things you struggle with. I finally stopped kneading, turned to face him fully. Struggle with? I repeated. Dad, I've turned a profit every quarter since we opened. I paid off the startup loan in half the expected time. We have a 6-month waiting list for custom orders. But my words didn't register. In my parents' eyes, I would always be the impulsive son who dropped out of business school to attend culinary school. Meanwhile, Emma would always be the golden child, even after she was fired for reckless investment decisions that lost her firm nearly $500,000. Your mother already discussed it with Emma, he continued, ignoring everything I said. She's excited about the opportunity. Think about it, Daniel. You could focus on what you love, the baking, and let Emma handle the business side. I wiped my hands on my apron, leaving behind white flour streaks. Dad, this is my business. I built it from nothing. Sure, Mom co-signed the loan, but I'm the one who transformed this old space into something special. He placed a hand on my shoulder, giving me that condescending smile. Son, we just want what's best for everyone. Emma needs this. She has a family to support. And I don't matter? I asked, my voice quiet. My dreams don't count because I'm single? Don't be dramatic, he sighed. Your mother already drew up the paperwork. Emma will be taking over as managing director next month. The world tilted sideways for a moment. Mom can't do that, I said. But even as I spoke, I remembered the fine print on the loan documents. Her co-signature had come with conditions, ones I had foolishly agreed to because I never thought she'd use them against me. That evening, my mother and Emma came to the cafe after closing. I sat across from them in one of the booths I had personally reupholstered, listening as they laid out their plans for my dream. We need to streamline operations, Emma said, scrolling through something on her iPad. Cut the specialty items, focus on mass market appeal. No more of this artisanal nonsense. That artisanal nonsense is why we have loyal customers, I pointed out. Emma rolled her eyes. They'll adjust. We need to think bigger chain potential, franchising opportunities. Not this small-time stuff you've been doing. Mom nodded approvingly. Emma has great ideas for modernization. It's time this place grew up. I glanced around the cafe, the handwritten menu boards, the gallery wall of customer photos, the scent of fresh sourdough in the air. Everything that made this place mine was about to be stripped away. And if I refuse? I asked, though I already knew the answer. My mother's expression hardened. Then I'll call in the loan. You can't afford to buy me out, and you know it. She was right. Every penny of profit had gone back into the business, new equipment, staff training, sustainability initiatives. I didn't have the cash reserves to buy her out. Emma leaned back in her chair, smirking. Don't make this difficult, Daniel. Just focus on your little treats and leave the real business to someone who understands it. I exhaled slowly, reached into my pocket, and pulled out my keys. My keychain, a tiny copper whisk, had been a gift from my first employee on opening day. I set it down on the table with a soft clink. Go ahead, I said, my voice calm. Since you're the woman in the family, You must know better than me. Emma snatched up the keys, her smirk widening. Everything was set in motion. 6 months passed. I barely spoke to my parents during that time, and I never stepped foot in the cafe again. But I kept tabs on it. Emma had changed everything. She fired half the staff, replaced my suppliers with mass distributors, and ditched the handcrafted menu in favor of frozen, pre-made options. The community, loyal to the soul of the place, slowly stopped coming. Then, one evening, my phone rang. It was my mother. Daniel. She choked out, her voice thick with tears. The cafe. It's failing. Of course it was. I had known this would happen the moment they handed Emma the keys. What do we do? She pleaded. Can you help us? I glanced at the clock. It was nearly 8 p.m., and I was standing in the kitchen of a brand new bakery. One that I had been quietly building since the day they forced me out. This time it was entirely mine. No co-signed loans. No family interference. Just me, my craft, and a space where I could create freely. I thought back to the moment Emma took the keys, her confidence dripping with arrogance. The way my parents dismissed my hard work. I took a deep breath. Then I hung up the phone. Immediately, Mom started saying something about how I was being sensible, but I was already walking away. I pushed through the kitchen doors one last time, running my hand along the industrial mixer I had saved for months to buy. Then, without another word, I grabbed my bag from the office and slipped out the back door. They had no idea about the photos I had been taking, documenting every detail of the cafe's operations. They didn't know I had copied all the recipes, supplier contracts, and customer records. And they certainly didn't know about the new business plan I had been quietly developing ever since Emma first started hinting about helping with the cafe. Growing up with Emma, I had learned one thing. When she wanted something, she usually got it. And then she usually destroyed it. So I prepared for this moment. That night, as I drove home, I didn't cry. I didn't dwell on the betrayal. Instead, I started counting. Counting the days until Emma would prove exactly why this had been a terrible idea. I didn't have to wait long. The changes started immediately. Emma wasted no time in overhauling Flour and Hearth Cafe. The first thing she did was fire Marco, my head pastry chef, the one who had been with me since opening day. Too expensive, she said. Next, she swapped out our carefully sourced, high-quality ingredients for cheaper alternatives. Our handcrafted signature items? Gone, replaced with mass-produced pastries from a commercial supplier. I watched from a distance, getting updates from Ethan, one of the baristas who still texted me regularly. The artisan bread program you built? Scrapped. Replaced with frozen, par-baked loaves. She ripped out the vintage decor today. Everything's generic now, cold and sterile. Customers are leaving, man. Prices went up, quality tanked. It's not the same place anymore. Then one day, another message from Ethan. She installed TV screens everywhere. They play ads on a loop. It looks like a fast food chain now. I didn't respond, but I saved every text, every update. Each one another piece of evidence that I carefully filed away, knowing they'd be useful soon. 3 months after Emma took over, my father called. The numbers are concerning, he admitted. Emma says it's just growing pains, but your mother is worried. Would you consider coming back? Just to help smooth things over. No, I said simply, and hung up. Instead, I focused on my plan. I had taken a job at a bakery across town, working early morning shifts. The owner, Martin, had been in the business for 30 years, and he quickly became my mentor. He understood what I was going through. He had lost his first bakery to his ex-wife in a messy legal battle. People like your sister, he said one morning as we shaped croissants side by side, they think running a food business is just about spreadsheets and profit margins. They don't get that it's about relationships. Every recipe, every detail, every customer interaction. It all matters. He was right. Emma treated the cafe like just another business venture. Something to be optimized, expanded, and scaled. She didn't understand that our customers came for more than just pastries. They came for the experience, the craftsmanship, the personal touch, the soul of the place. For months in, the cafe's reputation was in shambles. The same food blog that had once named Flour and Hearth the best bakery in Willowcrest published a scathing review of the changes. Loyal customers took to social media, voicing their disappointment. Emma's solution? She hired a PR firm and started offering discount coupons, throwing good money after bad. 5 months in, suppliers started calling me. Your sister is behind on payments, they said. Is everything okay over there? I took notes of every call, every complaint, building my case piece by piece. Then, Exactly 6 months after Emma took over, my mother showed up at my apartment. She looked older than I remembered. Worry lines etched deep into her face. "We need to talk," she said. I let her in but didn't offer her anything. The last time I had given her something I baked, she had handed it over to Emma to sell. "The cafe is in trouble," she admitted, sinking onto my couch. "Emma, she's made some mistakes. The bank is threatening to foreclose." I said nothing. I just waited. "We need your help, Daniel," she continued, her voice desperate. "The customers keep asking for you. The staff is threatening to quit. Even your father sees that we made a terrible mistake." "And Emma?" I asked. Mom's expression darkened. "She's already moved on. She says the market wasn't right, the location was wrong. Some nonsense about economic conditions. She's looking at starting a cryptocurrency company now." Of course she was. Emma never stuck around for the fallout of her failures. "How bad is it?" I asked, though I already knew from my sources. Mom swallowed hard. "Bad. We're 3 months behind on the loan payments. Suppliers are demanding cash up front. The health inspector cited us for violations last week. We're weeks away from having to close permanently." I stood up, walked to my desk, and pulled out a thick folder. 6 months of documentation, photographs, customer complaints, supplier issues, financial records. Everything I had been gathering since the day I walked out that back door. I had been waiting for this moment, and now it was time to act. I sat across from my mother, the thick folder of documentation resting on the table between us. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, my voice steady. "You and Dad are going to sign the business over to me. Completely. No conditions, no co-signing, no family involvement. I'll take on the debt, negotiate with the bank, and rebuild what Emma destroyed." She opened her mouth to speak, but I wasn't finished. "You're also going to write a formal letter to every employee Emma fired, offering them their jobs back with back pay. And you're going to take out a public notice in the local paper acknowledging that removing me from the business was a mistake." Mom stared at me. This son she had never truly taken seriously. And in that moment I saw it. The exact second she realized just how badly she had underestimated me. "You've been planning for this," she said slowly. "Since the day you let Emma take my dream away," I confirmed. "Did you really think I'd just give up and walk away forever?" 2 weeks later, I stood in my cafe again. Truly mine this time. No strings attached. The papers were signed, the announcements made, the apologies issued. Marco was back in the kitchen, already working on bringing back our signature items. Ethan and the other staff members were reinstalling the vintage decor they had carefully stored away. The local food blog published a new article. "Flour and Hearth returns to its roots. Original owner takes back the reins." Our old customers started coming back, drawn by the smell of fresh-baked bread and the promise of restoration. On our first day back under my management, my father stopped by. He lingered awkwardly by the counter, watching as I decorated a wedding cake, something Emma had deemed unprofitable and eliminated. "I'm sorry," he said finally. "We should have trusted you. We should have seen what you were capable of." I finished piping a delicate sugar flower before responding. "Yes, you should have." "And Emma?" he asked hesitantly. "Will you ever forgive her?" I thought about my sister, already onto her next venture, leaving others to clean up her mess as usual. "Emma did me a favor," I said finally. "She showed me exactly how strong I am, how much I'm capable of. And she showed you exactly why you should have believed in me in the first place." Dad nodded slowly, then left. I went back to my cake, to my kitchen, to my dream, the one I had fought so hard to reclaim. A year later, Flour and Hearth was thriving again. The loan was being paid off steadily, our reputation restored, and even enhanced. I had even opened a small baking school in the space next door, teaching others the skills I had worked so hard to master. Emma never came back to the cafe. Last I heard, her cryptocurrency venture had failed, and she was looking into house flipping. But I kept her corporate makeover photos displayed prominently in my office. A reminder that sometimes you have to lose something to truly understand how hard you'll fight to get it back. Yesterday, a young man came into the cafe for a job interview, fresh out of culinary school, passionate about baking, eager to learn. He reminded me of myself at that age. "My sister says I'm wasting my time," he admitted nervously. "She thinks I should get a real job in business." I smiled, thinking about the journey that had brought me here. "Let me tell you a story," I said. "A story about a baker who lost everything to his sister's business sense, and how he got it all back. And then some."